Hey, 104th Maverick checking in with another video. This time by request, guys. I'm going to quickly go over how to get up and running in the fantastic UH60 Blackhawk mod for DCS, and I'll show you guys how to start it, how to take off, and how to land like a boss. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first things first, let's quickly talk about setting up the controls. The good news is you don't need to bind a lot to get going in this thing, guys. It really is very easy. Once you have more experience with the aircraft, you can add more binds as you go along, but just doing these simple assignments will get you airborne and doing the Lord's work moving men and materials around the battle space. First thing we need to bind is the trim release button. This is going to be the button we press when we want to start working on trimming the aircraft so we don't have to hold the cyclic forward all the time to be flying around. Next up is going to be the trim reset button, and as you might have guessed, this resets the trim. It resets the trim back to the default position, guys, so that you have a perfectly centered cyclic. After that, all we need to do is set up the cyclic trims. Now, just like a fixed wing aircraft, these are going to trim the nose up or down, left and right. So ideally you want them on a thumb switch on your joystick. And once that's done, guys, we're ready to go. The startup for this mod is really very simple, guys. It only takes a few items to get up and running before you're ready to take to the skies. The first thing we have to do is turn on the battery switch. We then want our APU generator on, and generators 1 and 2 both on. We are now ready to engage the APU here. While the APU spools up, I like to get the radios online and get my channels set for the frequencies I'm going to be working on. So I tune the UHF radio and both FM radios. We are now ready to start the engines, and we'll need air to do this, so we select the air source for the engine to APU. Now we want to turn on both fuel selector switches to the direct position and set the throttles to idle, and we can now hit the engine start switches for both engines, which are these little black buttons above the throttles. As the engines spool up, we monitor the temperatures and pressures, and we're looking for a turbine gas temperature of 520 degrees on both engines, TGT, and a gas generator speed NG of 630 before selecting flight on the throttles. Alright, now that we have that, we can go ahead and move the throttles to the flight position. You can do this by moving the mouse wheel over them, or by having them bound like I do. Once the TGT and NG stabilise, we can go ahead and get our automatic flight controls engaged. SAS1, SAS2, trim, FPS and boost, all set to on. This thing clears those warnings from the master warning panel, and we can go ahead and turn off the APU, and we can see that the master warning panel is now completely clear. This switch here arms the countermeasures, and these two at the bottom of the centre console turns on the RWR and the audible warnings from the aircraft. We are now ready to go. Takeoff in the aircraft is pretty straightforward. However, it's worth remembering that the aircraft wants to move forward when we raise the collective to the takeoff position if the cyclic remains in the centre. To counter this and take off vertically, we need to apply an aft input onto the cyclic, and also a little left cyclic to counter the aircraft's natural tendency to roll to the right. We also want to bear in mind that the power pedal in this aircraft is the left pedal, so we're going to want a bit of power pedal set before applying too much collective, or the aircraft will torque turn to the right as we raise power. I've turned on the controls indicator for you in the top left hand side of the screen for you to see my inputs as we transition into an in-ground effect hover. As the helicopter becomes airborne, we make small and precise inputs to remain in position over our takeoff point and establish a hover. You'll notice that we still need aft and left cyclic input to maintain position. We are also making small changes on the power pedal to maintain our heading. To transition into forward flight, we initially leave the collective in the hover position and move the cyclic slowly forward with a continued left bias. As we gain airspeed, we slowly increase the collective and accelerate forward while reducing our power pedal input as the speed builds and as we pass through effective translational lift. Now that we're getting up to speed, we can start to think about trimming the aircraft so that we don't have to hold the cyclic stick forward all the time. Now you'll notice that we still have that left cyclic bias, but the amount that we have the cyclic push forward is roughly staying the same. So we'll go ahead and press the trim release button now and quickly move our joystick back to its centre position. This will then move the centre trim position to where the cyclic was when we pressed the trim release button. Now that we've moved the trim centre point by pressing trim release, we can start to make the fine adjustments by using the cyclic trim buttons up, down, left and right to maintain the aircraft in trim for straight and level flight. Okay, so there you go guys, a quick guide on how to get started in the Blackhawk. It's a fantastic aircraft to spend some time in, and considering it's a free mod, it's well worth checking out if you haven't done so already. If you did enjoy the video, please hit that like button and subscribe if you've not already done so to stay posted on the next Blackhawk video where I will teach you guys how to land like this. Top Gun and volleyball, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not Scott Manley. Fly safe.